Thanks for joining for the series on the questions and conversations with Shell retirees. Today, I'm joined by Leigh Fry. First met Leigh when I started with Shell in the Deepwater Gulf of Mexico group. And then a few years later, Leigh became my supervisor and was instrumental to my career with her coaching and guidance. So Leigh, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here, Trevor. Good to see you again.
Oh, you too. Leigh, appreciate you joining. You retired after over 30 years with Shell. Quite the accomplishment, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. To get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional career in oil and gas?
Sure. Well, I graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering from Northern Arizona University, which is not an oil field university, but I got recruited, went to work for Shell, and I started as a production engineer, and I spent pretty much my entire career in the production engineering realm. Started in New Orleans, loved New Orleans, stayed there the majority of my career. Again, like you said, 31 years. I was with Shell, and of that, I was about 25 years in New Orleans, and I had about 5 years on a sprint over to Aberdeen, Scotland for a project over there. That's pretty much it. Retired in 2013 at the tender age of 53, so that was awesome.
Oh, wow. That's definitely awesome, and congratulations on such a young retirement.
Yeah, Shell allowed me to do that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that in a little bit later. Before we dive into that, tell me more about working in Aberdeen and being international with Shell for 5 years.
Yeah, that was an interesting time period. It was unique because, like, in the 90s, I want to say, to get an overseas assignment, you kind of had to really know somebody, and it was a handpicked kind of thing. And most of the time, they sent people to, like, I don't know, Zimbabwe or like African countries or something like that. All of a sudden, in late 90s, they opened up the open resourcing forum in Shell where you could post for a job anywhere you wanted. That kind of all of a sudden opened the gate to international assignments, and it was really exciting. I was at a point in my career where I was like, I can't do this. I was bored, to be honest. Like, I've been doing the same thing, seeing the same thing, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So it was either go back to school, become a biomedical engineer, and completely change careers, or all of a sudden, hey, I'll go overseas to Scotland or wherever. I posted for a job in Scotland and in Australia, and I chose the one in Scotland. I don't know why. It was closer to home, I guess. But it was really, really an amazing experience, a highlight of my career for sure to go over. It's very interesting when you leave what you've been doing and go someplace you haven't been. I'd had, by that point, almost 20 years with Shell, and I had quite a reputation in New Orleans as a production engineer. I go over to Aberdeen, and they're like, who are you? What do you know? You know nothing. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, you really have to start building your reputation over again. Take some time for people to believe, oh, wait, she knows what she's talking about and stuff like that. But it was like a boost in the arm career move to go over and just, yeah, I'll talk about if you're going to ask me about my highlights or whatever my career, that was definitely one of them, the project that I worked on over there. But it's interesting because you start over. Like, you really start from ground zero, and you can't come in and go like, well, we did this in the Gulf of Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we don't care. This isn't the Gulf of Mexico. It's Aberdeen. It's the North Sea.
Right.
Right? So you have to learn and be open and go like, oh, wait a minute. You don't do pick fluids for your completion fluids the same way. It's a whole different process, and you gotta learn it. It was really interesting.
Okay, great. Yeah, so kind of just building on that then, when you look back over your career, what are you most proud of or most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my entire career with Shell. When I look back, I'm like, I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that I would have that kind of career and those kinds of opportunities to work with really, really smart and responsible and lovely people throughout your career. You're not working with the general public. You're working with a select few who have risen to the top of academic field, at least. And I'm just grateful for the whole thing. When I hired on Shell, I was like, I had all these I had 5 or 6 job offers, and I looked at this and I'm like, this would be kind of fun, like oil business. I don't know anything about it, but I get to go to New Orleans, Bourbon Street, all that. And it turned into something I never imagined. So I'm grateful for all of it. As far as the best things of my career, or what I most look back on, There's a lot of different things. I mean, Shell gave me so many different opportunities over the course of 30 years. And Aberdeen, like I mentioned, was one of, by far, the best thing. One of the reasons being I met a bunch of international people, from all over. Now I have friends all over the world because of that. And it was a project that was in concept selection, got in at the very groundwork of, we didn't know if it was be subsea or a platform or whatever, how many wells did you need? Like the whole concept selection process is where I started and took the project from that to first production. So that's very rewarding to go see a life cycle kind of project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from beginning, like from nothing to first production. And you're just like, that was really exciting.
That's great. I feel like that's rare these days with the level of people changing roles and just how fast projects move from one to the next and capital constraints. So seeing something go from concept to production is great.
It was amazing. It's so rewarding. That is rewarding. And then we had predicted it would make, I don't know, something like 800 BCF, and it would take 5 years. And I checked back on it after I came in, and sure enough, it produced that amount that we said, and it was done about, like when we said it, they'd already abandoned it like within 5 years. It was crazy. That was really exciting.
Wow. We're just going to attribute that up to being good and no luck involved whatsoever.
No luck. No luck. It's that good. It never happens.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
And then overall, I mean, the oil and gas industry is super cyclical. How did you manage the ups and downs throughout your career?
How I managed them and how I survived them might be two different questions.
Let's talk about both.
Okay. All right. Managing them, I think I just kind of kept my nose to the grindstone and kept just working. I didn't get involved in all of the drama of the whole thing. I tried to stay clear of all of that. I was very fortunate, obviously, I think my colleague Gil Purdy, at one point in our career, like in 2005 or 6, he goes, do you know how many layoffs we've survived? He counted them up. He's like, 31 layoffs we've made it through. Like, and you just go, okay, I didn't even realize it. I didn't keep track of it, but he went back and looked at it. He was like, we've been through so many layoffs, like on different levels. But it started when like you say, it's the oil business. I started in 1982, and by 1984, there were massive layoffs happening out of the gate. So it was just part of the culture. It's just part of, you just know it's going to be that way. I would say success-wise, one of the reasons that I was able to survive that was, I think you talked about it earlier, longevity. I didn't skip around. I didn't go from onshore to over there to this to that. I stayed kind of in the same realm. I could build my reputation. I could build my value, if you will. Because once you start new somewhere else, they don't really know you. If a layoff comes, guess what? You're not in a good position. I'd say my longevity, in addition to luck, fortune, blessing, was staying kind of in the same place and building a reputation.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely does. I really appreciate you sharing that perspective on how many layoffs you and Gil were looking back on over 15 years. I remember, I thought the first few years there was no layoffs, then 2009 hit in my career, and that was the first big one, was the transition 09. Then it was good. Oil went back up, everything was good again. And then it was one after the next for once a year. And I thought once a year was insane. And you were doubling that pace in the 80s and 90s.
There were a couple of years. And again, sometimes it'd be just, Wells Group, or sometimes it'd be, but they were hitting. I mean, they were definitely cutting back across the boards. It's crazy. I don't know if the oil business is really that much different from other businesses in that regard. I don't have perspective to say, but anyhow, it's a lot.
Yeah, no, that really helps put everything in perspective in terms of, what historically it's been like as well as today. Because it seems sometimes you get stretched, but then sometimes it seems back to back.
Are we still in that mode? Are we still in that cutback cycle? I haven't kept track over the last 5.
The biggest thing right now is a lot of shifting, specifically the energy transition. So how much to put in renewables. So that went heavy that direction. And now, it's pulling that back at Shell specifically. Oil and gas demand's up, and shareholder returns are becoming a bigger part of the picture, with renewables generally delivering less. So right now it's much more of the shift with energy transition and trying to really hammer out how Shell or any oil and gas company manages the next decades through that.
Yeah, they started that whole thing probably when I got back from Scotland. There was a lot of talk about hydrogen, solar, I don't know, all the different fission, like nuclear, whatever. And wind Wind was a deal. I don't know how they're doing with all that, but I know that they were like, oh, you can post for those jobs. And I'm thinking like within the company. Again, that goes back to you start over there and you're a new employee with 7 years of experience and you're being paid a lot more than a new hire. You're not going to, if they have a layoff, not going to be ideal. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on which group you're in and returns of your project.
Yeah.
After the 31 years, how did you decide to retire? So did you have a set criteria from either personally or professionally or financially?
I've never had any kids. I was fairly well set financially, like all along. I think the decision for me was that once you hit 30 years, at least this was the rule back when I did it. When you hit 30 years, you clicked over into medical coverage for the rest of your life as if you're a Shell employee. And before 30 years, that would not have happened. 30 years with Shell was kind of my criteria because of the medical situation. Now, I took a huge hit, like at 53, retiring at 53 instead of 62 or 63, took a 5% cut a year, like for every year before that. So I ended up with 50% or 55% of what I could have gotten, but it didn't matter to me. It was like, I don't know if I should be this open about this, but you get to a point in your career where the cycles within the company keep repeating. You're like, oh, here's this new initiative. Well, we did that 10 years ago when it didn't work, but we'll do it again. Okay, we'll start this up. And every new thing that keep rolling out with like, you got to change this, the process, it's not the technology so much, but the processes and all that. You get to a point where I did a little jaded and tired of the cycle. And I just felt like, you know what, I'm at a point where I'm not excited about the change and all that. But the younger people coming in, they haven't seen it. They're like, yeah, great. This is new. This is like, so I'm like, let them take it on. Let them just do it. I've had my time. I reached my 30 years and I just, it was the 30-year mark that kind of did it for me.
And then when we were talking before the call, you mentioned that you ended up moving to New Hampshire after Maine. And so now you're up in New Hampshire now. Have you done any paid work in New Hampshire?
Any paid work, like oil business or anything?
Just financial, anything, ministry, oil and gas consulting, run a business.
I've done a variety of things. Let's see. Initially, when I first retired, you have contacts and you can work as a consultant for a while. So I worked as a consultant for probably the first 5 years of my retirement. I graded work for production engineering training for new trainees and stuff like that. And that was good money. I mean, it was like maybe 2 to 3 weeks of work in a year and really good money. And then my contacts kind of ran out over in The Hague and they were like, we can't renew your contract. It was probably time for me to go. So 5 years of consulting-ish, which is kind of the Shell way, I guess. Coached volleyball for a while. And then I am paid in ministry, if you could call it that, but compared to like working for Shell, like how do they call it that?
Yeah, I'm sure relatively there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, big time difference. And I'm really anyhow, it's not a lot of pay, but it's something.
Yeah, no.
I will say this. I don't know if you're going to ask me this later, but and again, I don't know what the rules are going to be for you guys, the 30 to people that are 30 and 40, what it's going to look like when you're retirement age. But I had thought that when I took Social Security, there would be an offset in my pension immediately. I don't know why I thought this, and I didn't investigate it. And then again, my good friend Gil was telling me, that's not how it works, Leigh. They don't take the offset until you reach Social Security age. There's no offset in your pension. I was like, what? Meaning I could double up, for a while. So I looked at and I ran spreadsheets with not quite a Monte Carlo simulation, but what if I die here? What if I did there? Where does it pay out to take it early? Because you take a penalty. Mm-hmm. And based on my calculations, I was like, nope, I should take it now. So I just recently started my Social Security.
Congratulations.
Which is, I don't know, 3 or 4 years early, but I'm going to put that in the bank.
Yeah, no, I love that because you get on the pension form is minus Social Security offset, and then since you had the 80 points, you also get plus the supplement. Yeah. Your Social Security offset doesn't happen until full retirement age. So I love it.
I don't know why I didn't realize that. I thought, man, once I take it, Shell will know. or I need to tell, and they'll offset. And he was like, no, it's not how it works. I'm like, so I'm excited.
Great. So now, many of the people watching this videos, they're in their 30s and 40s. So if you were to go back and give your 40-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Couple things. I have a couple things. One is enjoy every day. Enjoy every day that you have. Shell is a great company to work for. I don't know if this is just for Shell people, but Shell is a great company to work for. And the people that you work with, and just enjoy every day. The other thing that I would say, maybe a couple things. So I had the benefit right before I retired. They hired this is a crazy thing, a psychologist or something to come in, and it was a leadership development kind of thing.
Okay.
And she came in, and I did all this testing and all this stuff. And one of the things that she built into me at 45, bear in mind I had 7-8 years left. She was like, what do you want your legacy to be? You need to start thinking about your legacy. You're building on the way out. What does that look like for you? And I would say your 40-year-old kind of employees, you should be thinking in terms of, what's my legacy here? What will I feel good about when I leave? And for me, I will tell you this, to me, it's the people. You building into the people around you and the next generation and all that to keep things going and care about their lives and their careers and how they're going to do is the only thing that lasts. Everything else dies away, right? It does. The people don't I won't have to say his name, but I had a very good friend who did a project in the Middle East. And he was he was with Shell, but he consulted for the Middle East Shell. And he went in, and their gas lift system was just like a mess. They couldn't tell where the gas was going. So he got in there, set up a massive. They put in the plumbing. They did everything. Got this thing going really great. Trained up these people. They had this gas lift system that was amazing, and he was so proud of it. He left, did some other things. He went back 2 or 3 years later. All the meters were broken.
Oh.
Everything was gone. It was no more. And he was devastated. I was like, man, that's all gone. Fine. But the people that you worked with and you built into and helped, they're still there, wherever they are. It's not the stuff, because the stuff is going to change and break and all that. But the people.
I mean, as I started this chat, one of the things that was instrumental to me was your guidance when I was the production engineer in the Gulf, and really learn the ropes and the technical abilities and how to write up a justification for an AFE and all of those things.
Oh, that good stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that was with Shell for 15 years. So that, really helped impact my career.
That's awesome. And again, those skills are great, but Trevor, the relationship that I built with you, that you built with me, that's the important. When I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to think, I should have replaced the pump on that. I'm not going to be thinking that. I'm going to be thinking these people in my life that made a difference. That's to me.
No, I love how you touch on people in their 40s to actually be thinking about that legacy. So that can be really powerful. Because at that point, life's busy, with Shell and then anything else as well. So it's important to start thinking about that. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it was really, really good advice for me, and hope that helps some people.
For sure. All right. And then last question. So now going forward, what are you most excited about?
Oh, well, I'm in the twilight of my life. I think for me, I probably have one more move in my life somewhere up, other than if I make it ancient, but I hope I don't make that issue. But I would really what I'm looking forward to is getting closer to my family, because we're a little spread out right now. We've got Texas, Florida, New Hampshire. And I think in the next 5 years or so, we're all going to try to kind of come to a middle ground somewhere to be closer together, so that I can see them more than just, holidays and vacations or whatever. So that would be it.
Oh, great. I love it. Ben, incredible catching up. It's so good to see you. And I really appreciate you sharing your insights and your story and experiences with everybody watching.
That's awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Trevor. And great to catch up with you.
All right. Thanks, Leigh.